The original De Sitter spacetime is a model universe first obtained by Dutch astronomer Willem de Sitter in 1917 as a solution of Einstein's equations, including the repulsive force known as the cosmological constant. De Sitter's spacetime is empty, expands at an accelerating rate, and is very symmetrical. In 1997, astronomers studying distant supernova explosions concluded that our universe now expands in an accelerated fashion and will probably become increasingly like a de Sitter spacetime in the future. Now, if the repulsion in Einstein's equations is changed to attraction, de Sitter's solution turns into the anti-de Sitter spacetime, which has equally as much symmetry. More important for the holographic concept, it possesses a boundary which is located at infinity and is a lot like our everyday spacetime. Using anti-de Sitter spacetime, theorists have devised a concrete example of the holographic principle at work. A universe described by superstring theory functioning in an anti-de Sitter spacetime is completely equivalent to a quantum field theory operating on the boundary of that spacetime. Thus, the full majesty of superstring theory in an anti-de Sitter universe is painted on the boundary of the universe. John Maldacena, then at the Harvard University, first conjec- first conjectured such a relation in 1997 for the 5D anti-de Sitter case, and it was later confirmed for many situations by Edward Witten of the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. And Stephen S. Jobser, Igor R. Klebanov, and Alexander M. Polyvakov of Princeton University. Examples of this holographic correspondence are now known for spacetimes with a variety of dimensions. This results means that two ostensibly very different theories, not even acting in space of the same dimension, are equivalent. Creatures living in one of these universes would be incapable of determining if they inhabited a 5D universe described by string theory or a 4D one described by quantum field theory of point particles. Of course, the structures of their brains might give them an overwhelming common sense prejudice in favor of one description or another, in just the other way that our brains construct an innate perception that our universe has three spatial dimensions. See the illustration. The holographic equivalence can allow a difficult calculation in the 4D boundary spacetime, such as the behavior of quarks and gluons, to be traced for another, easier calculation in the highly symmetric 5D anti-de Sitter spacetime. The correspondence works the other way too. Ritten has shown that a black hole in anti-de Sitter spacetime corresponds to a hot radiation in the alternative physics operating on the boundary space-time. The entropy of the whole, a deeply mysterious concept, equals the radiation's entropy, which is quite mundane. The expanding universe, highly symmetric and empty, the 5D anti-de Sitter universe is hardly like our universe existing in a 4D, filled with matter and radiation and riddled with violent events. Even if we approximate our real universe with one that has matter and radiation spread uniformly throughout, we get not an anti-de Sitter universe, but a rather Friedman-Robertson-Walker universe. Most cosmologists today concur that our universe resembles an FRW universe, one that is infinite, has no boundary, and will go on expanding ad infinitum. Does such a universe conform to the holographic principle or the holographic bound? Susskind's arguments based on collapse to a black hole is of no help here. Indeed, the holographic bound deduced from black holes must break down in an uniform expanding universe. The entropy of a region uniformly filled with matter and radiation is truly proportional to its volume. A sufficiently large region will therefore violate the holographic bond. In 1999, Raphael Boscho, then at Stanford, proposed a modified holographic bound, which has since been found to work even in situations where the bounds we discussed earlier cannot be applied. Boscho's formulation starts with any suitable 2D surface. It may be closed like a sphere or open like a sheet of paper. One then imagines a brief burst of light issuing simultaneously and perpendicularly from all over one side of the surface. The only demand is that the imaginary light rays are converging to start with. Light emitted from the inner surface of a spherical cell, for instance, satisfies that requirement. One then consider the entropy of the matter and radiation that these imaginary rays traverse up to the points where they start crossing. Bosso conjectured that this entropy cannot exceed the entropy represented by the initial surface, one quarter of its area measured in Planck's area. This is a different way of tallying up the entropy than that used in the original holographic bound. Bosso's bound refers not to the entropy of a region at one time, but rather to the sum of the entropies of locales at a varieties of times, those that are illuminated by the light burst from the surface. Bosso's bound subsumes other entropy bounds while avoiding their limitations. Both the universal entropy bound and the Hoopt-Susskind form of the holographic bound can be deduced from Bosso's for an isolated system that is not evolving rapidly and whose gravitational field is not strong. When these conditions are overstayed, as for a collapsing sphere of matter already inside a black hole, these bounds eventually fail. When Bosso's bound continues to hold, Bossos has also shown that his strategy can be used to locate the 2D surfaces on which the holograms of the world can be set up. Researchers have proposed many other entropy bounds. The proliferations of variations on the Holographic motif makes it clear that the subject has not yet reached the status of physical law. But although the holographic way of thinking is not yet fully understood, it seems to be here to stay, and with what it comes a realization that the fundamental belief prevalent for 50 years that the field theory is the ultimate language of physics must give away. Fields such as electromagnetic field vary continuously from point to point, and they thereby describe an infinity of degrees of freedom. Superstring theory from point to point, and they thereby describe an infinity of degrees of freedom. Superstring theory also embraces an infinite number of degrees of freedom. Holography restricts the number of degrees of freedom that can be present inside a bounding surface to a finite number. Field theory, with its infinity, cannot be the final story. Furthermore, even if the infinity is tamed, the mysterious dependence of information on surface area must be somehow accommodated. Holography may be a guide to better theory. What is the fundamental theory like? The chain of reasoning involving holography suggests that to the chain of reasoning involving holography suggests to some, notably Lee Smolin of the Premier Institute for Theoretical Physics in Waterloo, that such a final theory must be concerned not with field, not even with space-time. but rather with information exchange among physical processes. If so, the vision of information as the stuff the world is made of will have found a worthy embody, embodiment. Jacob D. Bekenstein has contributed to the foundation of black hole thermodynamics and to the other aspects of the connections between the information and gravitation. He is Pollack Professor of Theoretical Physics at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, a member of the Israel Academy of Science and Humanities, and a recipient of Rothschild's Prize. Beckington dedicates this article to John Archibald Wheeler. Wheeler belongs to the third generation of Ludwig Boltzmann students. Wheeler PhD advisor Carl Hertzfeld was a student of Boltzmann's student Friedrich Haschener. In the 1950s, while conducting research into the beliefs of LSD as a psychotherapeutic tool, Groove had one female patient who suddenly became convinced that she has assumed the identity of a female of a species, ferocious reptile. Consciousness is all and everything in the virtual hologram of our experiences, brought into awareness by the brain, an electrochemical machine, forever viewing, streaming codes for experience and interpretation. Consciousness originates from a source of light, energy, for the purpose of learning. The human biogenetic experiment is consciousness brought forth into the physical by the patterns of sacred geometry that repeats in cycles called time. Reality is about evolution of consciousness in the alchemy of time. To become fully conscious is to remember who you are as a being of light, why you are here, and where we are going, as dictated by the collective unconscious that creates the programs of reality through which your soul experiences simultaneously. Rene Descartes said, Cognito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. He was correct. Consciousness may involve thoughts, sensations, perceptions, moods, emotions, dreams, and self awareness. It is variously seen as a type of mental state, a way of perceiving, or a relationship between self and other. It has been described as a point of view, an I, or what Thomas Nagel called the existence of something that is like to be something. Many philosophers have seen consciousness as the most important thing in the universe. On the other hand, many scientists have seen the word as too nebulous in meaning to be useful. Consciousness is the subject of much research in philosophy of mind, psychology, neuroscience, cognitive science, and artificial intelligence. Issues of practical concern include how the presence of consciousness can be accessed in severely ill or comatose people, whether non human consciousness exists, and if so, it can be measured. At what point in fetal development consciousness begins, and whether computers can achieve conscious states. In common parlance, consciousness sometimes also denotes being awake and responsive to the environment, in contrast to being asleep or in coma. Consciousness is a term that refers to a relationship between the mind and the world with which it interacts. It has been defined as subjectivity, awareness, the ability to experience or to feel wakefulness, having a sense of selfhood, and the executive control system of the mind. Despite the difficulty in definition, many philosophers believe that there is a broadly shared underlying intuition about consciousness is, as Max Wellman and Susan Skrindier wrote in the Blackwell Companion to Consciousness, anything that we are aware of at a given moment forms parts of our consciousness, making conscious experience at once the most familiar and most mysterious aspects of our life. Does quantum theory explain consciousness? Consciousness, how do you go about explaining that? Indeed, many scientists are currently studying what happens in the brain and how the mind relates to the outside world. But quantifying What gives us consciousness is proving to be rather tough nut to crack. Is there some supernatural influence? Is it purely biological? Or is there something else, something more physics? Do you don't you think our consciousness might be explained by large hadron collider which is probing states of matter that existed immediately after the Big Bang? So it's bound to throw up some new physics. Don't you reckon it might uncover some sort of particle or energy that might explain our connectivity with the universe? Subconscious saves the day when hungry brains fails. Complex decisions should be made subconsciously rather than consciously. This is the conclusion of Dutch researcher Martin Boss. Hungry brains have difficulty making complicated decisions, but our subconscious functions fine even when hungry. The more intricate a decision seems, the more we should rely on our subconscious. Patients presume vegetative communicates via brain scan study. Scientists have detected glimmers of awareness in some vegetative brain injury patients and have even communicated with one of them, finding that push the boundaries of how to assess and care for such people. Abstract thoughts, the body takes them literally. The theory of relativity shows us that time and space are intertwined, to which our smarty pants body might well reply, tell me something I didn't already know. Einstein, waking up memory while you sleep. They were in deep sleep, yet sounds such as tickle whistle and a cat's meow somehow penetrated their slumber. The 25 sounds presented during the nap were reminders of earlier spatial learning, though the Northwestern University research participants were unaware of the sounds as they slept.